Hello, beautiful beginners and friends. I wanted to create this for you as lesson 3 in my brand new beginners playlist. I'm redoing it. And this I probably get asked about just as much and find it's just as much a challenge as water control. So I thought it was worth dedicating an entire lesson to this, and it's saving those whites, leaving those whites, creating those whites. So we're going to go through several different methods. I will tell you right up front, I'm not even going to go into using masking fluid because I don't like masking fluid. I was just trying to look for some. Nope, don't even have it here. I just, no judgment there. I just don't use it. And I think it goes back to when I was in college years ago, and just learning watercolors or, academically learning it. And I brought a small bottle of gouache into class. And I tell you what, you guys, I was shamed out of class. Now, keep in mind, this was a long time ago. Water classes were taught by my experience, purist teachers, and you did not use gouache. I'm sorry, not gouache, masking fluid. So I threw that away. I was traumatized because I was embarrassed, and I have just never really used it. Not that I never would, but I very rarely do. What I'm going to show you, though, is, and in class years ago, basically you were just taught leave white space, period. End of story. There was no lifting. There was no using gouache, scraping, crayon, none of those things. Posca pen, there was none of that. They even have this Copic opaque white. That's another choice. So there's all kinds of mediums you can use. I'm going to go through a couple that I have used, and hopefully it'll help you guys out. So these are the ones that I'm going to show you, and let's go ahead and get started. I am going to be using my, as you know, I love these, can't recommend them enough to you guys. These are the Paul Rubens, and if you don't need supplies, by the way, just fast forward, but I will link everything I show you in my description. But these are the not MEEDEN, Paul Rubens, the My Lang palette. And I just love it. It has all my favorite colors, super duper creamy if you're a beginner. And if you can catch it during Prime Days, I think it's under $20, you guys. Normally it's about $24. They're beautiful. Like, I cannot say enough about them. So grab those if you get an opportunity. I love them. So I just gave them a little spray. We're going to get those softened up and ready to go, activated. And these are some of the tools and mediums that I'm going to show you. I'm using my Artisto paper in the 9x12. And I've got my water here. Pardon, one side is blue, but you want to have two wells, one to wash, one to rinse. Really, really super duper important. And I'm using my 8 round brush that actually will be coming out again summer 2025. But my second favorite brush, and I'll link it down below as well. For a beginner, you guys, I think this might even be on sale. Get this 10 piece set. It's really inexpensive. I've been using these Dagatos for a couple years. They're fabulous, you guys. So I'll put that link below. Snappy, they've got great points. If you take care of them, they're going to last a while. If you want to go up just a little bit, you can always get the Velvet Touch, which I really love as well. It's what in college, that's what you got, Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a nice short handle, but today I am using mine. Here's the Velvet Touch. Nice point. I did my best to design mine somewhat similar to them. So, all right, well, let's get started. I'm just going to be using a simple blue vase. to show you because I think that blue is going to show up really well. So let's put a couple vases on here, and I'll go into my blue. I'm going to scoop my paper over here a bit and start with the first one. So we're going to lift on this one. So point, press, just doing, I'm keeping it really simple, guys. Let's just do a blue vase here. And I will tell you, blue is a little bit harder to lift, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing here. So that's why I chose the blue. So I've got this cute little vase here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, really shake it around, wash, rinse. Now I'm going to pat it off on my paper towel, and I'm going to lift. You know, I'm going to use the Princeton because it has a little bit more, or maybe I'll even use, let me show you how well the DWArt works. Let's do that because I really want you to see it. Here we go. So this is a nice dry brush. Let's go in and just lift out. Look at that. See that? So I've got this dry brush and I'm just lifting out. I love, this is how I learned to, besides just saving them in my paintings, but look how well it works. And I always feel like it's more of an organic look. Just going to clean that off a bit because look how much paint I'm picking up. So this was always kind of my go-to. It looks nice and organic. I like that technique. The second one I'm going to do is I'm going to create another vase, but I'm going to let this one sit here a bit because I want it to dry. So we've got another vase here. There we go. I don't want any puddles because I want this to dry. There we go. Here's our nice little Tuscan blue vase. Okay, so we're going to leave that here. I'm going to write here lifting. And you need to make sure when you go to lift, your brush is clean and dried off on a paper towel. So we'll let that dry and we'll come back to that, excuse me, and use some gouache. If you even have acrylic, you could use acrylic. I don't really have acrylic, I have gouache. And then we're gonna do a Posca pen too. Okay, let's do another one here. So let me put this is, we're gonna put, this is titanium white. And I've found that that one seems to be the most opaque. So here's our gouache. Next, we're going to scrape. So there's our vase, our lovely, you're gonna be really good at vases by the time we're done here. So you could use a credit card, like literally you could use all kinds of stuff. I didn't happen to have a credit card here. So I'm just, excuse me, going to use, well, you could use a credit card. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. So I'm going to scrape. Again, I kind of like this technique because it feels more organic to me. So here I go, just scraping out. And I do this a lot with rocks. I'm sure you've seen me do that. So there is another technique, really organic. Sometimes people have brushes. I don't happen to have one here, but they will have like a pointed end, and you can use that as well. But let me show you up close. So that is some nice technique there as well. If you have a credit card, you might be able to even get thicker. something like that. And that's kind of my technique I use on rocks. And again, it's very organic, I feel. So let me write that. That is scraping. You can also, well, I'll show you. Let's see, let's do a crayon. Okay, so I'm going to draw a vase so I kind of know where to put the crayon. So let's just draw a vase here. And then you can use a white crayon. They even have wax resist, which is, it's just a clear, it looks like a clear crayon. And they're pretty cheap. You can get a whole box for relatively cheap. But I just have this kid's crayon. So I'm going to put that here. The only thing I find about this is I kind of forget where I put it. And once you, so here, this white space, I could actually paint over that. Same with these. With the crayon, you can't do that. Like that crayon, it's there. And you're not going to be able to get it off. Okay, so let me show you this. Ooh, that crayon's not working very well, is it? I think that the wax resist might actually work a little better. I haven't used a crayon in a while. I usually use my wax resist. So there you go. You can kind of see it. And it's a little bit harder to tell where you're putting it. So I can kind of see here. Again, I like it because it's kind of organic. It's right here, right here, right here. And keep in mind, you're not going to be able to paint over that. So say I decide here I want to add a little bit of color into a shadow or a shiny spot. I can do that here. You can't do that here, because that resists, once it's on there, it resists, period. But it's kind of a fun technique. So let me write that down. Wax, resist, or crayon. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, if, to create some white spots, you could do this, which you probably are pretty familiar with this one. So let's, throwing my brushes around here, you guys. So I'm just gonna create some water here. And then tap in. There we go. Okay, so specifically if you were doing like clouds, and there's different uses, and I like to use tissue, like to blow your nose in, but just because it's thinner, so you can wad this up, and if you are making like clouds or something, you can, now I did save some whites in there, which, that just comes easily to me because it's how I learned. But you can do something like this and pick up those white spaces. It's not going to be bright white. It's going to be very organic. Now I can go in and, add around those white spaces, maybe with a little gray here. Something like that. So, again, that's very organic to create these clouds. I didn't have enough room there, but just showing you that you can use a tissue to lift some white spaces. That's going to drive me nuts because, let's see, let's get another little piece here and pick some of that up. I want to try and make it look like clouds. So anyway, for clouds, that would work really well. So we've done scraping, we've done wax resist, we're going to do gouache. We did lifting with either a piece of tissue or with a brush. So those are both lifting. And they're very organic. These are my go-tos. You could also, let me show you real quick, with that kind of lifting out to create some white space. I've seen a lot of people do this. So let's say we're painting a pretty flower. So let me get some of that on my brush. So we're just going to kind of create a flowery shape. I've seen this a lot. I've never really totally used it. But say we have this rose shape. Rinse my brush. You could use, hold on, I'm gonna get tissue, like, hold on. I just think it gives such a softer look. So I'm gonna really crinkle it up like this. So I've got all kinds of bends and things in there. And let's go in there. Okay, so that was a little bit too much. Let's try that again. I wanted to have, this is why, you know, I kind of have never really been into this, this technique, because I kind of like creating my own petals, but let's try it again. There we go. Hey, you know what? This is what you do though. Like even when you go to try these, do them a few times till you kind of get the feel, and then you, I think I did it too hard, and you'll see what you like. So here we go. There we go. So that was the issue there. Just don't do it as hard as I did. And it creates, you know, kind of this little flower petals. And now you can go in and start pulling out some of your petals, which I'm not going to do right now. I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so the next one, oh, let's do the gouache here. Okay, right here. So with this, again, you can use a marker of some sort. There's all kinds of markers. I like the Posca because it just seems like it works really well. So that isn't really saving whites. Again, if I would have walked into class with that 20, 30 years ago, my gosh, I would have been shamed out of there, guys. Let me get a little bit of this on my brush. Grab, this by the way is a brush in my box, my subscription boxes. Look at that, isn't it cute? A little two round. And I'm just gonna go in. This is quite thick. I'm gonna try it straight out of the tube. I might have, I don't typically put, have gouache in my pans. So yeah, you know what, that's pretty thick. Let's water it down a little bit. I don't use gouache a lot. Okay, there we go, that's a little better. I wanna keep it pretty thick. Let's see what we got here because I want it to be pretty bright white. There we go, let's give that a try. So point, press, oh yeah, look at that. See how bright that is? So, you know, this is just another way to add in some white space. So there you go. And then the obvious one, let's see, where'd my gouache go? Is, let me show you. So if you had a flower, you know, and this is pretty obvious, you guys. And then the last one I will do is actually leaving white space, but let's just do a little flower here. So I've got my center, 2, 3, 4, 5. I use guidelines, you guys. There we go. And okay, so, you know, the obvious is you just leave it white. You paint around something, you negatively paint. So let's grab some blue, and this time just put the blue around it. By the way, I made so many of my brushes in my subscription boxes that you get 2 brushes, 4 paints. You get everything you need for to paint. They're even giving you 5 pieces of paper, by the way. So you're just negative painting. You're just painting all the way around. And then, let me do this finish real quick. So this is really popular. You could even, you've seen me do like the daisies and such, where I'll show you that one in a minute too. So definitely, you know, I paint leaving the white spaces very intuitively, but you definitely have to have a bit of a plan where you're going to leave them. Unless you're using gouache or something, which you can go in at any point and just paint over. So, you know, like here, I had to plan what I'm leaving white. And while that's drying just a bit, let's just go in and I'll show you leaving white space. So I'm going to use purple for our vase. So we've got our vase. Here we go. Ooh, isn't that color pretty? Ugh, I just love that color. Okay, so here I go with the other side. I'm already thinking ahead, like where am I going to leave that white space? So this is probably the hardest way to leave it, because you got a plan. And if you ruin it and paint over it, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have to go in and lift or do something like that. So this is the other way, is you actually leave the white space there. Now see, I would have rather had a little bit of white space right here. And this is the way I was taught. And this way. So at this point, you know, you would go in here and just create your center. Create your flower. Like that. You get a little. There we go. And you could even go in and color your flower yellow or whatever, but you know, that's a lot of white space. Okay, I've got another one here for you guys. By the way, on this one, when you have these little white spaces you've created, you can go in now and go ahead and say, if this is dry, it's a little wet still. You know, you can go in now, and you've seen me do this on some of my tutorials, where you've left some of that white space, point, press, point, point, press, point. And now, you know, you can go in and paint over it. So that would be kind of a technique for doing white space like that. Really didn't want to get into painting a rose here, but it kind of bugs me. So anyways, it makes for an interesting background for some roses and things. So let's see, we've got here, leave the white space. Leave white space, negative painting. And you saw maybe the other day I did a daisy, and this one too. So this one I think is the most advanced beginner, as well as this one I'm going to show you right now. So this is, say, the center of my flower. Now I'm going to go in with just the tip of my brush for the most part. And I'm going to create my petals. I might even just use a few guidelines there. Something like that. And again, you're leaving white space. I'm going to say this is the most difficult. So something like that. I am doing some point and press, but for the most part, you know, I'm leaving those white spaces in there. Come out here. Now you'll see me paint like this a lot. It's just fun for me, and you know, you're gonna figure out like how you like to paint. Maybe you don't leave a lot of white space, and that's perfectly fine. You can go in these other ways and kind of do that. So I've got a lot of white space I left in there. So that and this are the most difficult. I can't leave that flower without painting the center, guys, sorry. I know, isn't that weird? So there we go, and I just can't stand it. I gotta go in and put a stem in. And there's another white space right there. So that is really kind of the technique that I use, but you guys, let me tell you, that's because I'm not kidding. I'm being a little facetious, but I'm not kidding. I was traumatized and embarrassed in class for bringing in gouache and such. So I really got in the habit for most of my life painting to leave white space. So those are a couple of the ways. I don't think I missed any. I showed the Posca pen. That is this, the white gouache, which, you know, works really well. Lifting, I love. I love lifting. I do use scraping occasionally. I do use lifting some paint, so it's not the pure white space, but I like that. I do that a lot in my clouds and my rocks. This was lifting with tissue. So I hope this helped, you know, to give you some ideas. Maybe you've seen a lot of these before, but, you know, anything that's round, you're going to want to have some lighter spaces or a white space, and just kind of planning it out before. Like if you really want to be dramatic in your white space, like a jar or a bowl or vase like this, like kind of draw it out, plan it out before you go to paint. So here's my vase, and it's like the light's coming from over here, and there's a lot to creating shadows and white space, but I pretty much know I want a white space there, maybe one here, maybe there, maybe at the base. I mean, there's different shadow reflections and things. I don't want to get into all that, but you know, have an idea if you're going to use the more advanced technique of leaving it, of preserving that white space. If you're going to go in with gouache, scraping, wax resist as well, because that's going to be there. You can't paint over that now. So anyway, that's the majority of the getting some of that white space. I hope it was helpful. You know, let me know what you think, and thank you so much for those of you that have hopped on over to Patreon. You know, we have a free membership. I have a free membership, and I like it because we can share our photos of our work over there. And I love to see what you're doing because I can give you some feedback that would be helpful. But at the same time, I really have to tell you guys, you know, I'm so appreciative for your support there. Even if it's just a few dollars, a few dollars goes towards a tube of paint. I go through an awful lot of supplies, so I really appreciate it. And I love our connection there. We all get to chat. We get to show pictures. We're celebrating each other. Lots of input from everyone there, ideas, inspiration. So just thank you so much for, number one, suggesting I get on Patreon and hopping over there and joining me. I really appreciate it. All right, everybody, I hope this was helpful. I am going to make this lesson 3 in my beginners playlist, and that was a lot of fun. I can't wait for you to give it a try and let me know what you think. By the way, I didn't go into masking here. I think I said that in the beginning because I think I'm traumatized by masking. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I appreciate you all. And happy painting. I'll be right here reminding you you are an artist.